Let's talk personal and professional development in the world of logistics. Hey there, my friends. Deigan here, and welcome back to the Logistics Life. So today, being Friday, next week we're going to be kicking off another book, and I'll be releasing the title of that shortly to you. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was this idea of personal and professional development in logistics. And I guess this show can probably relate to a lot more people, not just in logistics. So I think what I'll do is I'll share with you some aspects of the logistics life that we live, where personal development for me and professional development has really come into play. And then we'll talk a little bit about, just other areas of life where personal and professional development is a must. And these are some things that I never thought really were a must. But when you sit down and you think of, how you structure a lot of things, right? There's the idea, there's the plan, there's the actions that lead to the success. And, I don't know if you were around the podcast when we were doing the Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And one of the chapters that I really enjoyed was this chapter about there are no quantum leaps, right? Because the world of personal development, at least when I first got into it, I see a shift in a lot of personal and professional development coaches who don't necessarily focus on that aspect of a quantum leap. But when I first got into it, that idea of a quantum leap was the sell. That was the, you're here one day in, 3 months' time, your life could be a million times better. And don't get me wrong, I believe that does happen for some people. I don't believe it necessarily happens in 3 months. I think it's over the course of a longer period of time, whether that be years or some people decades. And then they explode on the market. And people are saying, well, where did they come from? They're an overnight success, and they're not. And I'm sure you're of the opinion, especially in today's day and age, where, this idea of overnight success doesn't really exist anymore. And what I mean by that specifically in logistics is the fact that, if you came into this industry in the pandemic, it was fairly easy to get customers, and now it's not so easy. So how do we, the logistics sales professional, how do we keep our personal and professional motivation up to par? So I want to share with you 3 things that I do that I've put into my workflow on a daily basis that help me continuously improve and help me maintain a positive attitude. So number 1 is I read 10 pages of a really good book every day. That's equivalent to about 20 to 30 minutes of listening. And probably when I listen to an audiobook, that 30 minutes is probably a little long. I just find if you're not reading, I tend to start writing notes while I'm listening, pausing and all that kind of stuff. So the 30 minutes isn't really 30 minutes of listening straight. So the idea is, you're listening to a really good audiobook, and then you pause it and you write down all the notes you want to take. You can even, I do some squiggly lines, and then I say, okay, how does that idea make me think? What are the processes? And then the biggest thing with any book that I can suggest, the biggest thing by far is putting into action what you just learned. So what that means is you have a really cool strategy, you find a really cool idea, you turn that idea into an action item right away. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people read books and they're seeing really good information. And then the challenge is they hear it and they're like, yeah, that's great. And like I said in yesterday's show, pick one guru and go with them. And that for me was a wicked way to release and get rid of overwhelm, right? But the idea for this is, what are you doing with that information? And I'm sure if you've followed the Logistics Life, Sales Chatter, and the shows I've had, that's one of the core concepts is, what are you doing to apply or implement that strategy, that action, that workflow in your life today so it can help you in the future? And I think that's a key piece of what we're doing and how we as a logistics sales professional really start to gain traction and gain that momentum in our business, right? The idea of reading it, saying, yeah, what a great idea, and not doing anything with it, I think is one where we really lose. And we lose out on such valuable information because when you think of books, this is sometimes people's 5 years of people's lives that they've studied and revisited and done this and done that. And then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I got this idea. And I write a book. And those action items in there are so crucial. So that's number one. Number two is I always think of immediately when I say, okay, I need to take action on this. I always think of how do I include it in my workflow? So, for example, personal and professional development. Every day, I schedule an hour and a half to educate myself. Now, recently, that's been from like 6 to kind of 7:30. Then go for a walk with the dog, and then ready to start my day. So I always add that hour and a half in because here's the thing. This is one thing I learned from a mentor of mine, Brendan Burchard. He said, listen, when you want to increase motivation, just take the next step. And I went, wow. So how do we consistently, right? So if you take that strategy mixed with Zig Ziglar's strategy, where personal and professional development is like a shower, right? You kind of need to do it every day in order to stay clean and fresh and in the now. And that was obviously paraphrased, I guess is the best word to use there. But the idea is the idea and the concept is the same. How do we stay in that, action zone? How do we stay in the zone, right? Like sports athletes, how do they stay in the zone? So those are first and second. Number three for me is I monitor this action for about 2 weeks. And when I say monitor, I journal about it every day. I did this. This is how I felt. This is what happened. I did this. This is how I felt. This is what happened. And I do it for 2 weeks. And the reason I do it for 2 weeks is because I want quantifiable data to tell me that this is working. See, and there's a big difference, right? When we don't have quantifiable data, we tend to lose sight of what really works. We think it might be working, but we're not really sure. So make sure you measure what you're trying. And that's why, we go back to some of the strategies I've shared with you before, right? Don't take on too many changes at once, because when you do, you don't know really which one's working, right? So try those 3 strategies. Let me know how it goes. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend, my friends. Until next time, go out there, make every call educational, and crush your sales. We'll see you next time.